the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 86, here with my always brilliant and beautiful co-host, Inside and Out, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Doing awesome, Phil. How are you?
Doing well. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. First off, we've got our UFC Vegas 15 Lionheart versus Clark recap and review. Then we're moving on to our Tyson versus Jones recap. That was quite an interesting little circus card. Definitely worth talking about. After that, we're moving on to our UFC Vegas 16 Hermansson versus Vettori preview and picks. And then it's on to my favorite section of all, listener questions and more. But Fight Geek, I've got to start off the episode with this question for you. And it's very rare. It's not about MMA. It's about, in my opinion, what the main story of this weekend was, Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. What did you make of this main event and of this card overall? Because I've got to tell you, it's been getting shockingly good reviews. A lot of people saying that they were, cautiously surprised and pleasantly surprised by this card. And my main question to you, Fight Geek, is do you want to see more Mike Tyson sparring exhibition matches after this? Is there a market for these retired fighters, continuing to spar, such as a Tyson Holyfield 3 idea?
Yeah, I think there's a couple answers there for me. I clearly think there is a market for it. As you can see by, the positive reviews and kind of everybody kind of doting on the event as a whole. Do I need to see it personally? No, I don't really need to. I think it was fun. But, the fact of the matter is, and I hate to be kind of, the negative one, but, they still were rather old. And it still wasn't the Mike Tyson or the Roy Jones Jr. that I want to, remember back on. And,
well,
the
of
reason
course
you're
not,
watching
but it
this
wasn't
fight
billed as that, Fight Geek. It was billed
it wasn't,
as an
but
exhibition.
I don't need to see a 60% version of some of my favorite fighters personally. Now, does that mean that they shouldn't do it again or that it wasn't a relative success? No, not at all. I think that it was the best case scenario for everyone involved, especially with the main event. There was quite a bit of intrigue. The fight went pretty well. No one was hurt badly. Tyson showed some of his Tyson-esque traits. Roy Jones Jr. is still skilled enough to stay away from Tyson and make it interesting when he got in trouble.
He had his moments.
Well, they both had their moments. They're two of the best boxers of the last, 25 years or 30 years. So they're going to have their moments considering they both were, I want to say in shape is a relative term because Roy Jones Jr. is not a
Certainly Roy Jones Jr. was not an optimal
heavyweight. Well, he's not a heavyweight by nature. So for him, he was just clearly, much larger than normal. Now, do I want to see it again? I don't need to see it again, but if matched,
Tyson Holyfield. Forget the rematch between Jones Jr. and Tyson. I'm saying, do you want to see Tyson Holyfield?
No, I don't think it'll be a rematch. I don't necessarily want to see the Holyfield rematch, but I think that's clearly, an easy
Who would you rather see? Who would you rather see Mike Tyson matched up against?
I don't know. We're getting a little away from ourselves here. I'm not sure. But if it's going to be on a super sparring basis, if we're going to go that route, let's get Lennox Lewis out to do a sparring session with him or something like that.
Well, now, I love Lennox Lewis. I grew up, guys, watching Lennox Lewis with my dad, watching many Lennox Lewis nights.
But again, at this point, I'm not sure that that's a good idea either because, who knows?
That was my first combat sports, super legend.
I thought it was fun for a few minutes, but then I think you clearly saw their age, even though technically still pretty sound.
Sure. Okay.
The rest of the card was a complete circus card. Kind of had the feel of an old Pride New Year's Eve card.
Yeah.
Kind of just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of wackiness, a lot of blood.
Well, Fight, we're going to keep it moving off this card soon before we lose all our listeners. But look, we've got to discuss Jake Paul shadow realming Nate Robinson, the ex-NBA player, into another dimension in his fight.
Right, but does it mean anything?
Calling out Dylan Dennis and Conor McGregor in the post-fight.
And now you're talking about him on our podcast. He's winning.
I have to give it oxygen because the truth is it's just gaining steam.
Well,
who you got?
Anybody,
Jake
honestly,
Paul or Dylan?
Anybody who Conor McGregor versus Jake Paul is
forget Conor McGregor.
Please don't listen to our show ever again.
Forget Conor McGregor. Forget that. I'm saying Jake Paul, Dylan Dennis. Who you got?
Dylan Dennis chokes him unconscious.
No, boxing match, of course.
Oh, in a boxing match? Why would anybody want to see
Jake only challenged him to a boxing match, bro.
Oh, I understand that. But again, this is why none of this stuff matters. And we're actually wasting too much time on it because now we're discussing Dylan Dennis and probably Ben Askren next in a boxing match versus a YouTuber. It's completely retarded.
Fight Geek.
Excuse my language.
This is
Can't deal with it.
I'm pushing back hard on this. Listen, you don't have to like the idea that Jake Paul's in boxing. I don't like it. Jake Paul's an unlikable dude.
I'm not interested in Dylan Dennis boxing. He's not a boxer.
But what I'm saying is these circus fights,
these circus
fights are getting more interest than world title fights, Fight Geek, and we can no longer ignore that.
Dylan Dennis has been in 5 minutes. Dylan Dennis has been in a stand-up fight for less than 5 minutes, and he lost all of those exchanges with the guys with losing records in MMA. So it's not like it's some, feat to beat Dylan Dennis.
I agree with you, but does that make Jake Paul a marketing genius?
Nothing.
Is Jake Paul a marketing genius then?
100%, because he has everybody interested in things that absolutely don't matter.
That's all I wanted you to say. That Jake Paul is a marketing genius.
But do I need to see him? Am I yearning to see him box Dylan Dennis? Absolutely not. I think Dylan Dennis needs to get in the Bellator ring and prove that he's an actual MMA fighter.
Absolutely. I think it's just very interesting.
I think it's low-hanging fruit for Dylan Dennis to even be calling out YouTubers. If he claims, that he was raised under,
Yeah, I know what he's claiming, but he'd take that fight in half a second.
Why is he picking on guys that aren't,
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'll say, and then let's get off this card, is even Mike Tyson, after his fight with Roy Jones Jr., had glowing remarks for Jake Paul, saying the UFC, this is his exact words, the UFC was kicking our butt. He's referring to boxing, and he thanked Jake Paul for getting interest back into the sport. Now, I understand how cringeworthy this is to boxing aficionados.
I feel so out of our depth on this episode already. We're like
this is a free. It's a circus. It's a circus card, and we're covering a circus fight.
Dude, well, I guess it may have brought a certain level of interest back to boxing, but I don't believe that's true boxing. I don't think that someone who's a real boxing fan is going to be yearning for these types of boxing matches. Are they fun on a Saturday night to see some crazy, wacky stuff and an ex-NBA player get knocked unconscious? Yeah, it's kind of wild and fun and very MMA, but it's just not something I can take seriously.
Absolutely. Nor should you take it seriously. But it's attracting crowds, so I wanted to cover it. But
no, 100% it is attracting crowds, and I do think there's a place for it. But when it starts crossing over to real professional fighters challenging, YouTube celebrities in sports that they're not even proficient in, it's really blurred. It's like, why don't you guys just have a rap battle then? Neither of you can rap, so...
Yeah, you're right. But if everyone
what's the difference? Why don't we put
if 100,000 people want to see them rap battle,
make a better omelet? Who cares who can box better out of Dylan Dennis and Jake Paul? It literally doesn't matter.
Apparently, a bunch of tweens care.
I know. I'm trying to convince them that it doesn't matter, but
fair enough. All right, let's move on to UFC Fight Night. Smith versus Clark. Really quickly. Not much to cover on. It was a fun card. It actually had a lot of finishes, a lot of stoppages. But, the thing that I say to the, how do I put it, the hipster diehards, Fight Geek, the ones who say, there's no such thing as thin cards, every thin card ends up being exciting and it means you're not a hardcore. Well, look, guys, here's the thing about that. If it's lower quality fighters, if you don't know anything about either fighter and one of them gets an incredible submission in the first round, you don't know what to take from that, right? Because you don't know what it means. You don't know anything about that X factor, the other fighter they defeated. So, am I crazy, Fight Geek, saying there weren't that many really noteworthy fights that we have to stop on here, despite the amount of
I don't think going into
submissions?
cards you should make a big deal about them being thin because, like people say, you never know what how the action will play out. But
but action is one thing, but you don't know how much you learn when it's low quality opponents.
That may be true, but when you have a bunch of new guys who haven't competed a lot, sometimes you don't know how good they may potentially be. With that said, I think you can look back at a card and be like, it was rather lackluster or just meh. So without being too negative, it seems like we're just taking a dump on this whole weekend. So let's just get into it.
Wow.
What do you think of Lionheart versus Clark?
Lionheart versus Devin Clark, man. I don't know if you heard the little story, but it was going to be 3 rounds. Dana said make it 3 rounds. He didn't talk to Smith or Clark. Smith called his agent or manager, who then called the UFC brass, not Dana Clark, requested it be 5 rounds. They checked briefly with Clark. He said it was fine. Changed to 5. Dana found out and for whatever reason said, let's just make it 3. Smith calls Dana directly and says, no, I'd really like it to be 5. Dana says, all right, fine, let's make it 5. Of course, Smith does not need even 2 rounds, getting the triangle choke at 2 minutes and 34 seconds of round number 1 against Devin Clark. My question to you, Fight Geek, is Lionheart back and ready for top contenders again, or was Devin Clark simply an easy W to feed a guy who needed one?
Well, again, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I don't think Clark was an easy fight, but I do think that, Anthony Smith is a level above him in clearly his ground game and, the length of experience he has. I thought that Anthony came in, closed the distance, got in, he actually took the fight to the ground. He got reversed and then reversed it, or actually he got reversed and then got the submission from his back.
He was taken down, got the sub off his back, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So I think, with Anthony Smith, what this really kind of raises, and to me is like, with Glover Teixeira and John Jones, he basically shelled up and offered nothing as far as jiu-jitsu or grappling, but then you see that he actually is kind of slick in this kind of circumstance. So it just kind of leaves you wondering, like, well, why wasn't he able to go to that well a little bit more in fights he lost so lopsidedly whenever you see him do something like this or against Gustafsson, and he looks like he has quite a bit of acumen on the ground. So it's a little maddening. I think Anthony Smith is becoming somewhat of an enigma at 205 because I think he's right in that he's going to beat all of the guys who are, not quite elite. But I think whenever you get to the top 3 guys or top 2 guys in the division, I just have a hard time seeing him win those fights. But with that said, great performance by Anthony Smith. Made short work of Devin Clark. Perfect bounce back opponent. Not a huge name. Not someone that Anthony was going to have to really, extend himself to beat. And I think that he knew that he had the advantage, got it where he had the advantage, and finished the fight. So I think it's an A+ performance. But like I said, somewhat of an enigma at this point. Not quite sure where to go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to follow that up with, who do you want next for Anthony Smith? I've got 2 different names, and I'm not going to lie, I'm very proud of them, Fight Geek. I think they're both very good.
Well, without further ado, let's hear them.
It just depends on which direction he wants to go. Does he want to stay a little bit in, a little bit of that comeback lane, kind of not guarantee, but really sort of essentially guarantee that W, or does he want to go big or go home? So the easier path W that I think makes all the sense in the world is Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, I don't see that. Let's hear the next one.
Well, look, no. Let's remember something. Luke Rockhold was talking a ton of ish to Anthony Smith.
I understand, but Luke Rockhold is on a
he said he's
forever streak. He just had his jaw broke by the champion, got knocked out.
That was a long time ago. That wasn't that
I
recently.
know, that was the last time he performed, though. So
I
the last
know, and
time
Anthony Smith is 1-2 in his last 3, so let's rock and roll.
No, I think the Paul Craig fight is actually the fight to make.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't disagree more, because I think that if you're going that other route of the harder route, you make Smith versus Santos too. Santos.
You could make Smith versus Santos too. That's definitely a fight on the table. But I think the Paul Craig fight makes all the sense in the world. Paul Craig just ran through Shogun. Anthony Smith ran through Shogun. They're basically occupying the same space more or less, which is like that 6 through 10 range. Paul Craig is tricky on the ground, is a little enigmatic himself. So I think it's the perfect fight to make. It's a crossroads fight for Anthony Smith, kind of like this one, but he should get out of that one with the W against a credible opponent in Paul Craig. And it's also a step up for Paul Craig in name value.
Paul Craig is 14, Anthony Smith is 6, and Smith just had a fight against, a much lower ranked opponent. Does he really?
Right, but Anthony Smith has lost to all the guys ranked above him, basically.
He hasn't fought Dominic Reyes.
That probably would not end well for him, in my opinion. I mean, Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith.
He hasn't fought Yuri. Obviously, those two are Reyes and Yuri. I believe are matched up.
Yuri's too big of a puncher for Anthony Smith, in my opinion.
Okay. So, all right. Wow, I'm shocked that you don't like the Luke Rockhold idea. Rockhold was talking a lot of stuff.
Rockhold in any fight.
Dude, Rockhold wants to come back. So who should Rockhold fight?
Luke Rockhold?
You got to choose someone for Rockhold to fight.
No, Luke Rockhold. Who says he's ever coming back? The last I read,
he said he wants to come back fairly recently, man.
At 205.
He didn't clarify, but he was talking a lot of shit.
He looked horrible at 205.
But is that loss really that bad now that you know it's against the champion?
Well, yeah, because if you go back and watch it and you know who Luke Rockhold used to be, he was slow, lethargic. His leg is a huge liability. He doesn't protect his head. I mean, everything is wrong with Luke Rockhold's fighting at this point. I just don't see any need for him to fight a guy who's striving for contention.
Okay, fair enough. Now, there was is there anything else on this card?
Is Anthony Rumble Johnson definitely coming back at heavyweight?
The last I heard it was light heavyweight, but the truth is that guy's a question mark.
Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Anthony Smith could be a nice welcoming fight for Johnson.
Until I'm proven otherwise, Rumble Johnson coming back is about as realistic as Nick Diaz coming back.
Agreed. I think that's a push.
Yeah. So one fight I just had to touch on, and it's not a big main eventer. It was barely on the prelims. It was the second fight. And it was, I'm going to butcher this name, but I don't care. It was a flyweight bout between Su Mudarji defeating Canada's Malcolm Gordon in 44 seconds of round number 1. A KO via straight punches. Again, this was a flyweight fight. And
it was an awkward stoppage because it looked like Gordon just did not want any of the shots after he ate about 3 straights.
He quit. He ate some bad ones.
I believe his nose was broken on the first straight left, and then I think it's Semur Darji?
Su
Mudarji, okay.
But this guy, guys, this guy is for real, okay?
Those shots were coming straight down the pipe like a piston, and it's rare to see a fighter kind of just give in like that. So, big shots. That was impressive. I mean, obviously, a lot of people were really high on him going into and coming out, so clearly one to watch.
The Tibetan Eagle is his nickname, which I love. I
don't like that. Come on, there's only one eagle. It's like
you can be you can be the Tibetan Eagle. He's only 24 years old. He's a flyweight.
Only one eagle, okay?
I'm just saying, look, keep an eye on this one, fellas and gals. Keep an eye on this guy. So, anything else you wanted to cover, or is it time to move on to UFC Vegas 16?
Let's just call out Baeza. Obviously, Baeza, super athletic, fast-rising prospect. Looks to have everything you need to be a star. So
Baeza got the sub against Takashi Sato at 4:28 of round number 2.
Yep, one to watch definitely, and I think he's got a lot of potential.
Yep. Well, welterweight bout. Baeza has now climbed to 10-0. Is there a certain fight you had in mind for him, Fight Geek?
Baeza. I mean, there's lots of fun fights. Baeza versus Mike Perry, if he could make weight, would be fun. Baeza versus Nico Price would be fun. Anything like that.
Yeah. Yep. Robbie Lawler, even.
Nah, I want Robbie Lawler versus Tim Means. I feel like after Tim Means beat Mike Perry, he should have stole that opportunity, especially considering he's been a company man as long as he has. So I'm gonna keep calling for Robbie Lawler versus Tim Means from now on.
Okay, are we ready to move on to UFC Vegas 16 preview and picks?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. UFC Vegas 16, Hermansson versus Vettori. Until a few days ago, this was Hermansson versus Holland. Kevin Holland tested positive for COVID-19. It is now Jack Hermansson versus Marvin Vettori in Fight Geek. One thing I noticed on my bookie site that I personally use is that Marvin Vettori is a minus 130 favorite.
I know how. I don't understand how they're coming.
Did this surprise you like it surprised me?
It's 100% surprising because if you were to go through the, kind of the individual skill sets, who has the more impressive victories, who has the more paths to victory, I would say that Jack Hermansson checks all of those boxes. With that said, I'm a big Marvin Vettori fan myself. I think he's a dangerous guy who's really rounding into form. But yeah, I think it's absurd for him to be the favorite at this point. I think it would make a lot of sense to throw some money on Jack right now just because, but that's me.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll be honest, I was just speaking from a betting standpoint, guys. I was extremely tempted to do exactly what Fikey just said. Sprinkle some money on that dog, Hermansson. What? He's a plus 120 underdog. It looks very tempting. But, I thought about it, and what has Hermansson, what has he shown sort of a weakness to is power punching. And, obviously Cannonier put him down in, very quickly in their main event. And I'm a little concerned that he could get caught looking for a takedown against Marvin. And
yeah, but he's dealt with power punchers. Jacare is a power puncher.
Jacare is also good on the ground. I mean, Jacare is a problem everywhere.
No, Jacare is known as a jiu-jitsu guy, but if you're going to say that he does not have power, you're insane. He knocked out Chris Weidman with a shot to the forehead in the third
Everyone
round.
knocks out Chris Weidman. Come on.
Well, David Branch, he beat him. David Branch
true.
is a heavy punching guy.
True.
I mean, he's been in there. I mean, he's obviously had some problems with the super big punchers like Santos and Jaron Cannonier. I agree with your point, though. Vettori is a brooding, come-forward power puncher, but I don't think he's quite as refined as the previous guys I just mentioned.
All right. Well, do you have a formal pick for this fight?
Well, I definitely think that you got to take Jack Hermansson. Like I said, I think he has more ways to victory. On the ground, I think he will have a significant advantage. I think if the fight goes into the later rounds, it's definitely going to favor Hermansson, who's been more of I'm not sure how many 5-round fights he's or main events he's had camp for, but this is Marvin Vettori on short notice going into a 5-rounder. So, if it goes into the late rounds, I'd favor Jack, maybe by submission, but it is a great matchup. I'm a big fan of Vettori, but I'm taking Jack via 3rd-round submission.
Ready? I think this is a weird fight. I think it's got weird odds, and I think it's very last minute. But I have Marvin Vettori. I think he's a kid with the chip on his shoulder who's always very angry, but I find him hilarious. And most of all, I find him extremely talented. I really do believe I do believe that he's as good as he thinks he is, or at least close to it. Maybe I should stop myself.
Well, when you have that kind of belief and you're that young and tough, you at least have that going for you.
I got Marvin Vettori by 2nd round TKO stoppage.
Wow, if that happens, he will announce himself in a big way in that division.
And he is obsessed with with the fact that it is true that he fought Israel Adesanya very tough, took a round from him.
He
Granted,
did fight him close,
granted
for
that was
sure.
a very long time ago, and Israel has improved leaps and bounds.
Yeah,
But
I was there live, and it was a pretty lackluster fight, honestly.
yeah, no, I remember Israel almost kind of sheepishly apologizing for it in the cage after,
Yeah.
but Marvin certainly hasn't forgotten about it.
And Marvin's been calling everybody out in the top five, so I mean, this is his chance. So, like you said, he could put a stamp on it, but I still think Jack is the guy.
So, Fight Geek, really quick question here, and this is taking things a little bit in a different direction, but I think it's very relevant. So, obviously, what we didn't mention at the start of the show is the main event for last week was supposed to be Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades tested positive for COVID-19 last minute, and the fight was scrapped, making room for Lionheart's fight versus Devin Clark as the main event. Obviously, this week, Jack Hermanson was supposed to fight Kevin Holland. Holland tested positive for COVID-19. Now we've got Marvin Vettori. Hopefully that fight stays together. Who knows? And then, really quickly, I don't know if you heard, but Leon Edwards has tested positive for COVID. His fight versus Hamzat Chimaev is canceled and delayed, pushed to next year. Wonder Boy versus Jeff Neal will now be that main event. And my question to you is, as COVID cases skyrocket in the country, things seem to be getting truly a little bit out of control, in my opinion, in terms of the MMA main event staying intact. Do you think it's time to implement a mandatory bubble system for at least a month out from fights? I know that's extreme, but I think we're seeing some serious emergency protocols needing to be used.
Well, I don't think that'll happen, and it just goes back to the same reason that
But
nothing
Fight
can
Island
happen.
essentially is that, Fight Geek. So I'm just
It
saying,
is, but
move
you
things to
can't.
Fight Island early.
These are private contractors. You can't require them to come down and live and relocate somewhere unless you're going to pay them the whole time they're staying there.
Right.
I mean,
I
I
think
just
the
don't think
question
it's
is,
feasible
okay, well, the
because it's
question
not
is
like
it worth
it's
it?
not like the NBA where there's a players union and everything is uniform. It's not like that at all. It's the Wild West still. So yes, I mean, Fight Island is like that, but it's go at your own risk. It's at will. It's not mandatory that you go stay in another country for X amount of days away from your friends and family. It just gets. I'm just not sure how they would be able to do that.
I guess what I'm trying to say, Fight Geek, is that I think that what the UFC needs to do is relocate every event. Obviously,
But what I'm saying is they cannot
to Abu
control.
Dhabi,
They
starting
can't
after
control
this weekend.
fighters for a month leading up to fights. So it doesn't matter where you move the fights to because you have to control who the fighters are interacting with.
Right, but when you've got them in Abu Dhabi, they're not exactly as likely to go out to the club and meet their baby mama and their friends and their grandma and their work coworkers.
That's true. I'm sure. I'll give you that. There's less moving around if you're kind of on foreign soil in a hotel room.
You're in Abu Dhabi, it's like, what are you gonna do?
But then again, you can't hold them there for long periods of time, exorbitant amounts of time.
Well, and you're right. No, you bring up a very good point. Look, they're independent contractors, but I guess what I'm also insinuating, Fight Geek, and thank you for making me clarify this, is that Dana would give them, he would give them a little bit of extra financial incentive for sure.
Right, but what happens to the coaches who have to be there, the referees that have to be there, the judges that have to be there? Let's say these people. Well, ideally, some of them are supplied, but what I'm saying is there's a whole bunch of people that come with these fighters. Not only would you be putting up the fighter, but you'd be putting up I would say 6 to 10 man team.
Right, but doesn't it seem to be? It really just seems to be the fighters that are testing positive left, right, and sideways right now.
Well, that's because,
Because you notice them? Sure, but I mean, we also hear stories when teammates test
well, how
positive,
do you
when
know the
coaches.
fighters aren't getting it because, they're trainers or people in the gym or the
No, that's
girl at
very
the front
fair.
desk? I mean,
No, of
you,
course
you,
they are.
you
They,
don't
they
know
are,
where it's
but
coming
but
from.
no, they are Fight Geek, and that's a great point. But I'm saying Abu Dhabi will limit that because they're in Abu Dhabi.
I know, but why would these same people why would they come a month early? They're not going to do that.
I
Then
mean,
they have to do the end portion of their training camp there and everything.
if
Especially
there's one thing I have belief in Dana White on, I believe he can sell an idea to fighters who have to answer to him or they're fired.
yeah, but you ain't going to get Conor McGregor to come live in a bubble for 60 days.
Well, that's
Ever.
true. That's true. You don't need. We're not talking about Conor McGregor here. I will give.
Then what are we talking about then?
We're talking about every other fighter. What do
We're
you mean? What are we talking
where
about
Molly
then?
McCann should stay. Who cares?
I'm talking about. Okay, what I'm really talking about, Fight Geek, is every pay-per-view. So yes, Conor and Dustin, you get a part of their contract to say your contract's void unless you come and you.
So essentially, they would have to leave before Christmas, not be families, so that they can make their fight on January 23rd. You can't get those guys to do that.
I mean, there's a wild pandemic that's getting, much worse day by day. I'm not trying to get.
I understand.
I'm not trying to get all
questions that
Dr.
kind of
Anthony
stick out
Fauci
over all
on
this.
you guys. Obviously, I'm just saying. We're seeing main events fall through left and right. Right? Just look at this week and last week.
100%. But I don't think that's something we're going to be able to get around for the foreseeable future. It's going to be hit or miss.
It's just annoying because I was really looking forward to
it is
Edwards
annoying,
versus
but-
Chimaev. I was really looking forward to that, and it's gone. Now it's Wonder Boy Jeff
We were
Neal.
all looking forward to it, but that's the way the world is right now.
I wasn't dreaming about Wonder Boy Jeff
count
Neal.
your eggs before they've hatched, Phil.
Yeah, I know. Okay, all right. So, with that, is there anything else we wanted to touch on? We've got is the co-main OSP versus Jamal Hill. OSP is the hardest light heavyweight in the UFC to predict. He is
in history.
In history. Thank you. He is so hot and cold. I never know what he's going to do.
He could gas in 90 seconds and look horrible, or
he can look like a potential title holder.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's like, is OSP horrendous or is he a potential superstar? I still don't know.
Yeah, I think, again, another enigma. He's somewhere in between.
He's so weird, dude. He's got the weirdest rhythm of, performances ever.
OSP versus Anthony Smith is weirdly entertaining if he gets through this fight.
Yeah. So who
but
you
this
got?
fight, to be honest with you, Jamal Hill's been very interesting. So the fact that Jamal Hill he's got a long reach, he seems to be pretty confident, he's had great results, and the fact that OSP is so unpredictable makes this fight really hard to call. I mean, really hard to call for me. I went back and forth. I wanted to make a case for Jamal Hill, but
I'm leaning OSP because he's so weird.
The potential of the good OSP showing up is always too much for me. So I am going to take OSP based on his trickiness within the grappling and, the overwhelming experience advantage. He has 39 fights versus 8. So I'm going to take OSP via submission.
Ooh, I have to agree. I'm gonna also take OSP via submission. But guys, if there's one fighter that you should never ever gamble money on, it's OSP.
Right?
Is that fair?
No, 100%. I have no idea what's going to happen in this fight, which makes it one of the best fights on the card, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Literally anything is possible as far as finishes go. I mean, OSP could backhand Hill and knock him out, or Hill could just knock out OSP. Probably less likely, but definitely going to be awkward for a few minutes.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 86, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and it is now time for my favorite section of all, Listener Questions! Thank you.
All right, let's get to them.
All right. So this first question comes from my man, Zan Bando. Love Zan. He says, is December 19th's UFC Fight Night card the greatest show of the free TV era? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Now, he did ask this question prior to Edwards versus Chimaev being replaced, but still, it's quite a card with Wonder Boy Neal, and I think it's a good one. What are your thoughts? Is the answer an automatic no?
Sorry, no, I had you on mute there for a second. I was just looking up the lineup. It's pretty solid.
It's still great without. I mean, it sucks that it's no Edwards Chimaev, but still.
Well, that fight just brings so much intrigue. I mean, both of those guys have so much riding on that. It's hard to see that one fall through because it's kind of a prove-it fight for both guys in a way at this point.
Yeah, and for the record, everyone, it is being rescheduled for early next year.
I mean, it is a great card, top to bottom. I mean,
so
Pereira
Thompson,
versus
Neal,
Chaos Williams. That's going to be a crazy fight. Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. That's going to be an absolute very intriguing fight. Diego Lima, Bilal Muhammad is good.
And you said, before you said Chaos Williams, Michelle Pereira, right?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a crazy fight. Serkinov versus Span is interesting.
Marlon Moraes
versus Rob Font.
Yeah,
Marcin
Tybura, Greg Hardy.
So what was the question as far as how good it is?
Is this the best fight night of the free TV era?
Off the top of my head, I really don't remember them like that, but seems pretty stacked. I'm not sure that it has quite that.
Oh, come on. You can't say yes now that it's missing Edward Chimaev.
I was saying.
The answer is, for me, is yes, it would have been with Edward Chimaev. Now it's not.
I can get with that answer.
Okay. And I can't think of what's better on the top of my head, honestly, but that's a question for next week. I'll look into it, and I would say close, but yeah, can't say that.
I got one from Jacob Powers queued up. He says, what do you guys think happened with Yair after hearing what Dana White said at the press conference? Got any thoughts?
Did you see that, Fight Geek? Did you see that?
I just kind of saw that he brushed it off and kind of said
it was very suspicious. They were asking him. First of all, they were. I mean, Dana was just being weird. He said, "Did we talk about that publicly?" He's looking off stage to who is definitely his assistant. She says no. He says, "Why not?" She says something or other, which I believe was along the lines of Yair didn't want us to. Oh, that's a rough translation. I don't know that that's true. The point is, then they asked Dana, did Yair turn down a fight? And Dana said, no, that would be my business, and what happened is none of my business. But I don't think Yair will be fighting for a long time. Now, he said this with a smirk that did not, I know some people might say, well, that could be a family emergency. That's not how Dana delivered this, okay? He did not deliver this it was a family emergency, he's going through some horrible family thing type of tone. He delivered it in a, Yair pissed hot. He is a drug cheat type of tone.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that his tone inferred that it was a drug thing. I mean,
What did
when
it
it comes
infer
to,
then, Fight Geek?
well, I mean, I'm not going to read in between the lines too much because we don't have any information, so it's all speculation. But with MMA fighters, we have seen a litany of things. We've seen, what if he got some girl pregnant? What if he got a DUI?
Got
What
some
if he's
girl
going
pregnant.
to
He can
jail?
fight. Yo,
Huh?
Darren Till gets a girl pregnant every 2 months, and he fights twice a year.
Well, they were always. I mean, there was rumors back in the day that GSP retired because he had got a girl pregnant and had to get his life in order. So we've heard all kinds of random things throughout the year. So it's kind of unfair to Yair to be like he's cheating. So who knows?
If you get
what
a girl
happened.
pregnant, isn't that insane? You've got to fight even more. Now you got to pay for that kid.
Well, again, I don't want to act. I don't want to
Oh, come
infer
on.
that
This
any of
is
these are
gossip land.
specific.
Don't act like you're
I'm
above
just
it.
saying the possibilities under the sun, legal possibilities. There's all kinds of things that could have happened. Literally endless possibilities. So to go to something like Dana inferred that he's a drug cheat, I think.
Well, Dana inferred something sketchy happened. Dana inferred something sketchy.
Of course he did, but it could be a million different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and in any case, he said that you should not expect Yair to fight anytime soon, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, but I mean you can literally say that about Yair no matter what stage in his career he's been in so far.
That's true. He's he's a huge drama queen.
Him,
Zabit, and the top welterweights.
A year in between every fight.
Say that again?
And it takes him a year in each and every fight, and there's always all kinds of random drama involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm not saying it has anything to do with steroids or banned substances. I'm going to say these are endless. Dana White, I mean, to try and infer what that guy's saying at press conference at midnight his time, the guy can barely hear any questions. He's got to double check with his assistant about every single answer. I mean, it's not exactly the most credible way to go about, trying to investigate.
Okay, all right. I think that's fair. All right, and then next question, really quick. We've got one more from Zan Bando. He says, really quick, if Figgy beats Moreno at UFC 256, is he fighter of the year? My answer is absolutely yes. That's 4-0 in the year, and that's 2 title fights. 3 title fights, debatably 4, but you can't count the first because he didn't make weight. So 3 title fights.
So yes, he definitely would be. I think Shemaev, if he would have came in and knocked out Edwards or something, would have had at least a claim to it. But I think at this point it's 100% Figgy. I mean, he's been active. He's been fighting elite guys. He's been real finishes. All of it looked very easy. So yeah, I think that's kind of what you look for in a UFC fighter of the year. Figgy's, much more well known after this year of success. He's obviously a world champion now. So yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. Okay, all right. Do you have another question lined up, or shall
Sure, I got one from MMA by Milliken. He says,
MMA by Milliken, what up?
As if the gorgeous Ariane Lipsky loses again, should she get cut from the UFC? I'm going to say just because the relative lack of depth in the female divisions, no, I don't think she should be cut. No.
I mean,
is she a world beater ascending towards a title shot? No, but is she a good litmus test for, any fighter in the division? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Actually, this reminds me of because we did take a week off this past week. Thank you for letting me brag to Fight Geek. You got it wrong. I got it right. I chose Antonina. You said Ariana would beat her. Well, guess what? Antonina beat her down. What's up? And I get that. Thank you. I wanted to keep it classy.
Good performance by Antonina for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I should have known better. She was in camp the whole time with her sister for a freaking title fight. I should have known she would have been sharper than ever.
The thing about Ariane, man, I love her, and it is not just because she is my future wife. No, I'm sorry, just kidding. But no, seriously, I think Ariane needs, Fight Geek, is I think she needs to leave her comfort zone and just come to American Top Team or just one of these top gyms that's going to kick her ass because I'm not seeing the improvements that I would expect to see from a UFC fighter after, nearly half a dozen fights. She's got to improve her ground game. She's got to improve her takedown defense. She's got to, I feel like she's capable and she's just a little too comfortable with her branding. I'm sure her looks make her feel a little comfortable. That's not a knock on her in any way, but as we've seen with the Rachel Ostoviches of this world, when you're really attractive, it can be, I think, a little bit of a, it can be a distraction to training.
Well, you don't really know that unless you're seeing their day-to-day, so that's just an assumption.
Well, I'm seeing their day-to-day from their social media, and there's too little training, and there's a lot of photo shoots, so I'm going from social media.
All right, fair enough. I think, I can agree on some of that. Maybe a change in camp would help. I think she struggles to pull the trigger and doesn't seem to have, a great game plan. But, yeah, I think she's been I think she's underperformed based on her reputation coming into the UFC.
Yeah, all I'm trying to say is that Ariane could be better. By the way, let me clarify real quick. This isn't saying that, only attractive MMA females are prone to, being distracted. Ha! Hardly. That's a joke. If anything, it's
what
the
male. What are you talking about? Let's keep it moving.
No. Hang on. I'm making a point. If anything, it's the male fighters that get vastly too distracted. I mean, Brian Ortega, before he started taking things seriously, we saw how distracted he got and what that cost him in the Holloway fight. These fighters get distracted, but the point is, Ariane Lipski, she's a true talent. She's a Muay Thai champion, and she can improve to be UFC caliber. She's not there yet, but once she improves her ground game, she's going to get there, and I want to see it happen, Fight Geek. So that's why I'm speaking, emotionally and strongly about it. I know she can get there.
Yeah, that's why, I'm sure.
You don't think she can get? Do you not think she can get there? Do you not think so?
Well, I just think that you're way over dramatic. First of all, she has wins in the UFC, so she's clearly proven that she's UFC caliber. That's already been established. She is UFC caliber.
Okay, thank you. I mean a UFC challenger, a contender.
With a little bit of change in scenery, a new game plan, yeah, she could potentially be a challenger. I don't see her as a champion, but sure. Can we move on yet? Are you done with your soapbox, Lipski?
Go ahead. Oh, Fight Geek. Oh, wise one.
All right.
Look at this disrespect. Do you guys believe this? What I put up with?
Yugi MMA. Have you been saving that up for 2 weeks? Your Lipski rant?
Oh my God, bro. Get to you.
All right.
Yugi, what up?
Do you guys think that the Apex will be shut down due to COVID? Question 1. Yes or no?
No. Because I know the Nevada mayor and she doesn't care about COVID.
Do you think we will be a fight island due to shutdowns across America?
No, but as I mentioned earlier, Yugi, I think that's the move and would be the better idea, which Fight Geek disagrees with.
Do you like sushi?
Yes, I do.
I do not.
Wow.
And he says, I love you both. I can't wait for the next show. Thanks for the question, Yugi.
Yugi, I love you, bro.
No sushi for me. Sorry. All right, I got one from Cyrus Kong. He says,
Cyrus, what up? Combat Corner, what up?
He says, do you see Clarissa Shields running MMA being more like Holly Holm or Heather Hardy?
Yeah, if you guys didn't hear, Clarissa Shields, the boxer, just signed a development deal with PFL, so she's now going to fight in the PFL as well as box. Cyrus, your question is so nicely worded because do I see her being like a Holly Holm? Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Do I see her being like a Heather Hardy? Ooh boy, if she's lucky, if she strikes a gold mine, then yeah,
You're insane.
maybe she
What are
can
you
compete
talking
in
about?
Bellator if she strikes a friggin' gold mine,
People
bruh.
are gonna stop listening to us because
Oh
your
no,
takes
yeah.
are
Oh, Clarissa
so.
Shields is gonna be a UFC champion. Are you
No,
insane,
she's
dude?
not gonna
Are
be
you
a UFC
insane,
champion,
bruh?
but you just neglect all the
What's
facts. First of
Clarissa
all,
gonna do in MMA? What's Clarissa gonna do?
PFL develop. Well, if you'll shut up for 5 seconds, let me make my point.
Fine.
Clarissa Shields on a developmental contract in PFL is the perfect way to develop her. If you've been paying attention, they just basically developed Kayla Harrison, obviously different skill set, more apt
That's different.
for MMA, but it's not that different. They gave her the right kind of fights to build her, make her confident. Now, do I think Clarissa Shields is going to go on a 10-0 run to begin her MMA career? Probably not. But I mean, Heather Hardy,
Kayla was better
alone,
equipped for MMA with the skill set that she had.
Listen. If you think that Heather Hardy is the athlete or the boxer of Clarissa Shields, we can't even have this conversation because
Of course she's not, but she's the more well-rounded MMA fighter.
Says who? You?
Yes. Wait,
Well,
you
don't
don't
know
think
what you're
that?
talking about.
Okay, so
Heather
you think
Hardy
Clarissa Shields beats Heather Hardy in an MMA fight?
Heather Hardy's like 1-3 in Bellator. If you give Clarissa Shields a year to train, yeah, she'll knock Heather Hardy out in an MMA fight.
I didn't say in a year. I said right now.
Well, what are you talking about right now? Heather Hardy has 5 years of training experience in MMA. Clarissa Shields has 5 months. So that's an unfair comparison.
Point is, Clarissa's going to be more like a Heather Hardy, and you can't change my mind. She's not going to be a Holly Holm.
The only reason she's going to be more like that is because Holly Holm is more of a kickboxing-based striker, and Clarissa Shields is going to be more of a boxing-based fighter. So I guess stylistically they'll be the same, but Clarissa Shields' ceiling is astronomically higher than Heather Hardy. That's like LeBron James being compared to like Matthew Dellavedova talent-wise. I mean, it's just not even in the same stratosphere. No offense to Heather Hardy, who I love, who's tough, who's a great fighter, but Clarissa Shields is like plutonium-grade goods.
This is where we disagree. You think there's
you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, wow. See, Fight Geek says I don't know what I'm talking about because he thinks there's a direct correlation to how good of a boxer you are to how good of an MMA fighter you are. In Fight Geek, it just don't work like that.
Neither of them fight.
What?
You've never seen Clarissa Shields or Heather Hardy in one boxing match in your whole life.
Oh, wow. I've seen Clarissa Shields in 2 and Heather Hardy in 2.
Oh, congratulations. Okay, well,
Thank you. And you know what? I feel like a congrats is in order because they were boring.
Well, being boring has nothing to do with it.
No, but thank you for congratulating me. That's all I was saying. Thank you for the congrats.
Well, you surprised me because I would have put the over-under at 0. All right, let's move on.
Okay, all right. Paul O'Kelly, Sparks F1 says, was actually just coming to post a similar question about Clarissa? Okay, Paul, I'm sorry. I have no idea how to do an Irish accent. I know you're Irish, and that was just pathetic. But to fill in Fight... I apologize to Paul, okay? I did it bad. But to fill in Fight Geek, I'll add this. Pound for pound, how do you rate Katie Taylor in comparison as a boxer to Clarissa Shields? Now, Katie Taylor is a very talented... Sorry?
Phil? Enlighten us, Phil. Break it down, both of them, their styles.
Well, Katie Taylor is a very talented Irish professional boxer. So I understand that, Paul O'Kelly is going to be a little biased. What's that?
If you can learn that much in the first line of Wikipedia.
Okay, all right. So, obviously Katie Taylor, a.k.a. the Bray Bomber, I believe. She's got 17 wins, 0 losses, and look, she's a big deal. She is she's a good fighter. But the thing is, she just doesn't compare to T-Rex Clarissa Shields. Clarissa's going to be more offensive. Clarissa has better counter-striking And she, in my opinion, because she's younger, she's only 25 years old, she's 10-0, she's better to be molded for mixed martial arts. Once she starts working on that wrestling defense and throwing those kicks for kickboxing, she can start truly implementing an MMA-based game. So I would put Katie Taylor as number 2 on the women's pound for pound, Paul, to answer your question. And Paul, I'd like to congratulate you on your amazing Mario Kart records. One of the best Mario Kart players in the world, and I still think that's cool.
It absolutely is cool, and I'm fairly impressed with your breakdown. I think I can agree with you. All right.
Oh, wow, look at that. Trying to call me out. Now he's saying he's fairly impressed with the breakdown.
Well, I could tell you were Googling.
Don't come at the king. You best not miss, son.
All right, you got another one for us?
Yep. This is from Glitch. That's at MMA Port. Love this guy. He says, #AskSplitPod. Who is the UFC Fighter of the Year for 2020? We touched on this slightly earlier. It's definitely Davison Figueiredo, a.k.a. the God of War, if he wins his fight against Brandon Moreno at UFC 256, which would make him 4-0 for the year, 3-0 in title fights. But here's an interesting question, Fight Geek. Who's the Fighter of the Year if Figgy loses? Does it change? Is it Kevin Holland?
Is it who?
Is it Kevin Holland?
No, I don't think Kevin Holland had enough high-profile wins to be that guy.
Is it Israel Adesanya?
Are we just talking about UFC only when we're talking about Fighter of the Year?
Well, okay, who did you want to select outside of the UFC?
What about Pitbull?
I'm
gonna go look at what he's done this year.
Yeah, that's not like an outrageous pick.
Oh no, he's only got the one win this year. Sorry.
Oh, he only has one?
Yeah, so I mean in the UFC, obviously Chimaev made a lot of noise with what he did.
Well, he's completely out of the running with AJ McKee and John Phillips. He's got to get out of here.
Right. Not AJ McKee, but I know what you're saying.
Oh, wait, what was the name? You're right. What was the name of that guy? You're
100%. John Phillips, Mearshard, and...
Wait, you're totally right. It's not AJ McKee's the undefeated Bellator fighter. My bad. Is it Rice McKee? Rice McKee?
Oh, it was Bryce. It might have been Bryce McKee.
Wait. Yeah, Rice McKee. Rice McKee.
Rice. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
How about, let's say, I'll go with Jan Blachowicz. Just because he's a Cinderella story, came out of nowhere, never expected him to be UFC champion, so
okay.
He'd be a nice, heartfelt story to win Fighter of the Year at this point. But let me see, does he even have 2 wins this year? This year it seems like it's been about 5 years combined, so it's hard for me to remember back to March before all this madness happened.
Oh man, you don't got to tell me that. Okay.
It's been like 7 years.
Okay, this question from my man Oscar Silva at WWE UFC _fan. Who currently has the better resume, Izzy or Usman? I love this question. I think it's a great question.
I think it's an amazing question, and I feel pretty strongly that it's Israel Adesanya.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, the depth of the names, clearly. He knocked out and finished a defending champion who was...
Usman beat a 4-time defending champ in Woodley.
Yeah, that's true. But Woodley was a little longer in the tooth. To beat, Robert Whittaker at 28 years old in his absolute prime after defending it twice over Yoel Romero. And I just think that win historically will stand up very, very, very well. So I just think that, along with Costa, his most recent fight, a name like, Anderson Silva on the resume, and just the...
And look, you can't take out Yoel.
Well, Yoel, I mean, Marvin Vittori, we got names all up and down it.
Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, when you look at guys, when you
The
look
thing
at
is I believe Israel Adesanya's resume will age better from today forward than Usman's will, because Woodley looks shot at this point. So it's basically people are going to think negatively about Woodley now, whereas Robert Whittaker's come back and beat Darren Till, and who did he just beat off the top of my head?
Jared Cannonier.
Oh, Jared Cannonier. So that win over Whittaker is actually getting better. You know, beating Romero it's kind of a mythical thing. Romero's like this monster that everyone's afraid of. So just having that on your resume, and then the Costa fight, which was a blockbuster fight where Israel had basically a flawless performance. It's got to be Israel at this point. I think Usman is dominant, but the depth isn't quite the same, in my opinion.
Yeah. My unbiased opinion, I'm obviously an Adesanya diehard fan. I respect the hell out of Usman. Not quite as big of a fan of his, but having said that, I'll be the first one to admit their resumes are very comparable, almost identical, in my opinion. Especially when you really look down that top 10 list for both divisions. Both guys have gotten fairly close to an argument that they've cleaned out their respective divisions. Not quite. Particularly Usman's a little farther off.
I don't feel that way at all. Usman, up until 5 fights ago, was fighting the Emil Meeks and Rices and Stricklands of the world. What are you even talking about?
Well, Usman's okay. All right, so let's take a look at the top 5. Usman's beaten Colby Covington. Leon Edwards is fighting Chimaev. He's beaten Jorge Masvidal. He's beaten Tyron Woodley.
Hold on. Without you going down, so let's say he beat Jorge Masvidal on short notice, who has no wrestling. Colby Covington is a great win. Woodley, because he was a defending champion, is a great win.
He fights Gilbert Burns next, which will definitely determine a lot, granted.
Sure, well, just listen. We're going through them. Dos Anjos is not that great of a win at 170 for Usman. I mean, Dos Anjos is a great all-around fighter, but he proved it at 170 he was too small. Lots of guys beat him there. Maya lost to a lot of strong wrestlers. I mean,
I know. I think we're arguing hairlines here, because I think they're close resumes, honestly.
Well, and I'm showing you why Israel's is better. Make your point.
Go ahead. Continue.
No, well, I basically went through them.
Okay.
Kamaru has about 5 top-tier wins, and 3 of them are against tailor-made opponents, whereas Israel has beaten a young prime champion, an undefeated top contender, one of the scariest men on the roster, one of the greatest fighters of all time, Martin Vettori, who's going to be ascending, Kelvin Gastelum, who's been a top 10 staple forever, Derek Brunson, who's a top 10 fighter right now, Brad Tavares, who is very credible. I mean, other than Rob Wilkinson, Israel Adesanya has fought a name fighter every single fight of his career in the UFC. So,
all right, you know what? That's fair. I'm going to give you Israel. That's fair.
Nice. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
All right.
So, moving on, I think we've got at least one last very fun question, and this is from my man, Dean Dog, at Dean Dog 3. He says, who's tougher in a street fight, Phil or Fight Geek? As always, #AskSplitPod.
Well, I'm a Taurus, so I'm going to say I'm the tougher one.
Wait, okay, real talk, Fight Geek. Have you ever been in a street fight?
Yes. Have you ever lost a street fight?
Yes, I have. What's your record in street fights?
I'm 1-1, Phil.
Are you really?
I am.
I'm actually also 1-1.
So I mean.
So I guess that means it's a draw. And by the way, the loss, I got cheap shotted to start off. Granted, it didn't knock me out, but it started it off on an unfair note.
I got knocked out by an elbow.
Did you?
Out cold.
Shit. I've only been knocked out cold once.
You don't find out how tough you are till you've been knocked out, Phil.
Oh, I've been knocked out, but it was in the gym. I got close to knocked out in the street fight I lost, but was able to retreat with a lot of blood streaming down my nice flannel shirt.
Yeah, I wasn't so lucky. I just woke up out of the blue with like 20 people standing over me.
Oh, damn. All right, well, we're 1-1, both of us. So
I still contend that I'm tougher.
I honestly don't think I'm definitely okay. Will you admit that I'm crazier? I'm definitely crazier than you.
Definitely more crazy and unpredictable, for sure.
Okay, so I feel like that's
like
gotta
if one
count
of us
for
were gonna
something.
bite the other one in a street fight, it would definitely be you.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so
All
there
right,
we go.
all
If
right,
you're biting
so-
me, you're definitely not tougher.
I think that toughness really is defined by bitingness.
Okay, fair enough. So I think we'll just go push there for everybody's ego involved.
All
We'll
right,
let
all
you
right.
guys try your own
Take us
conclusions.
away, Fight Geek. Take us away.
No, we got more, don't we?
Do we?
No. What about proper vegetables? Did you see his?
Oh, shoot. Sorry, everyone.
One of the show favorites too.
Wait, I'm sorry, Proper Vegetables. What was your question, Proper Vegetables?
He says, with Leon out of the main event, do you think the UFC will book Chimaev versus Magny instead? If they do, how do you think the fight plays out? Well, I think we've learned that they're not going to
They're not going to do that. It's going to be Magny versus no one. It's going to be Edwards versus Chimaev, rescheduled for early next year.
So, yeah, I mean, I would have liked that as a reschedule, honestly. I think Magny's been calling for that fight. Magny's looked good recently and, you know, is always a tough out. So I would have been down for that fight. I think Chimaev would have beat Magny just because I think Magny's shown a deficiency to wrestling, most notably in the RDA fight. So I think Chimaev would eventually smothered him.
Yep, I have to agree. All right, so anything left?
I am going to check one more I thought I saw. Hold on. Okay. One from Eduardo at Landa Crew.
Oh, Eduardo at Landa Crew. I'm sorry. How did I almost miss that? He's my man.
It's not on the reel. He just posted it. I saw it. So he says, how important is it for you guys to have friends or family that also watch MMA? Are you less likely to become friends with someone who's not a fan? #, #AskSplitPod.
None of my close friends like MMA that are like outside of Fight Geek and Twitter people, to be honest.
I think that's why MMA Twitter clings so tightly together, is because nobody cares about what we care about in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why do you think I'm on there all the time, guys?
I think I've gotten. I could probably count on two hands the people in the last 8 years that I've turned into real MMA fans. So, yeah, it's hard. I don't need anyone to watch fights with. I can sit on my couch alone and zone out watching fights.
Well, yeah, of course you can. You're married.
Very easily.
Of course you can. You're married. I mean, I'm single and I can do it, which is probably a sad thing and not a good thing.
Well, my wife doesn't like the fights at all, so she doesn't watch them. So
yeah, but you're married. It's fine. You can go and watch a movie later and make up for it.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I don't need anyone to like it. But, yeah, I think having MMA Twitter definitely helps because it's a good outlet whenever you want to spout off about the fights and nobody in real life wants to listen. So, appreciate all of you on MMA Twitter.
Appreciate you guys. You guys rule. All right.
All right.
Take us away, Fight Geek. Take us away, baby.
I think it's time to go now.
Let's go.
All right, guys. As usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We are at _podcast. It's 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.